Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to Thursday Night Live. As you can see, we have a special guest with us tonight, Mr. Chris Davis, and we're going to be going over Invocation here in just a little bit. First, couple of announcements. So, this weekend, if you haven't signed up, you can sign up until noon tomorrow. We're going to be doing the 200 series classes, one on Friday, so tomorrow night, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, and one on Sunday starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. The 200 series, of course, takes what you learn in the 100s and actually applies what it is that you learn. So it's the more intermediate stuff, and hopefully, we'll see some of you out there. If you have taken our 100 series and have been waiting on these, now's your chance to do it. We are going to be going in a round. So after this month, we'll have a month of 300s in September, so specialized classes. And then October, we are taking a break and starting back in November. So that's how it's going to work. Um, we also, next weekend, we are going to be at the Central Kentucky Mystical Market with this one here. Steven's Healing Vibrations is also going to be there, as well as Plinky's Magical Creations. Druzy Does It, I believe.
And I believe Rocky Hound. So
Mhm.
we're going to shamelessly plug y'all
Yeah.
because hearts, bitches.
So there's going to be a lot of us there in full force. Come by, see everybody, get your handshake, your hug, your high five. They're all free. And get your chakras dig, get a tarot deck. Go get you some crystals, get you some work done. We'll take care of you.
Get forked.
Get forked. Um,
Work,
and
work,
last
work.
announcement, we are going to be doing Tarot Night Live. Of course, last Thursday of the month. Come by, get your cards read. It is absolutely free to get on the list. If you donate stars, then you get bumped to the top of the list because technically you are a paying customer at that point.
And I see flames in the comments.
I mean, they haven't stopped, dude. You made a mistake and said that you would.
Oh, believe me, I know.
So, so for those that don't know, what the flames in the comments are about is Mr. Tyree had mentioned that he would dress in drag for Tarot Night Live if there were enough flames put into the comments. So keep them coming.
Flame on, bitches.
What is that magic number?
I think we have officially exceeded it, but
Yeah.
I just think it's funny to see them just randomly pop up with these huge comments that are nothing but like 9 or 10 fucking flames. Also, we need the ticker up. Also,
Oh, shit.
all of Spirit Mechanics lives, recorded videos, anything that we do, they are 18 plus. So there's going to be
I gotta leave, then I'm not old
there's
enough.
going to be some fucked up jokes. There's going to be some dark humor. We take what it is that we do the case in point. We take what it is that we do very seriously. We just don't take ourselves seriously. So you should be hanging out with friends, right? This shouldn't just be an information dump. This week, we're going to be talking about invocation. And next week, we'll be talking about evocation. Mr. Davis will be with us for both of those. And I'm going to let him start. So we're going to be starting with invocation this week. So what's invocation, Davis?
Well, so invocation and evocation are kind of tied together. Invocation is calling in, evocation is calling forth, as it's in the name for it. And invocation can be used for evocation, evocation can be used for invocation. And I know it sounds a little odd to say it that way, but you think about it. Let's say that you wanted to create an item and you wanted to put something in it. Okay. You could evoke and call it forth, and then use an invoke to put it in said object. Typically, you'll see things with invocation, though, the way it's more colloquially known, will be mediumship, where people will call something into themselves and they'll be a medium for said entity, be it deity or other.
So things akin to channeling, right? So things like
Because you're becoming the vessel or medium of it. So since you are the vessel of it, you're calling it into you, which would put it in the class of invocation.
So what makes it really interesting, at least as far as conversation goes, invocation is actually another form of prayer for those of you who are of a religious understanding or of a certain spiritual path. I will word correctly here in a second. So it's a type of prayer in certain circles as well,
Mhm.
which I thought was very interesting because you are calling in the quote unquote Holy Spirit, or you're calling in the particular angel, you're calling in the particular entity, or sometimes darker nature. So what's your take on that?
I would agree with that. I absolutely, because again, it is calling into you to intercede on your behalf in that. And I like to think of invocation, evocation is inside, outside, intra, extra. It's kind of how I think about it, even though it's evocation. But I think of it as I and E, in and out, in and external, internal, external. That's the way I keep them straight in my head. But
I mean,
absolutely agree with that thought process, because it is that. Any kind of divination, which would be prayer, tarot, any of that would fall under the invocation line. Again, it's the broadest use of the term.
of course. So if we're looking at it in that particular respect, would it be possible, we're talking about drawing things inward and or drawing things to a situation. Could you invoke something within yourself?
I would think that you would more evoke from yourself, because what's already in yourself, you would be incepting it if you did that. An application like that would be applicable would be like in a dream state, like when you're doing lucid dreaming. That would be more where you would invoke into yourself because you're incepting. Otherwise, you would be calling it forth out of you because you're wanting to bring whatever is in out. So that'd be fall under evocation.
Awesome. Because, some people, you're looking at like
More flames.
more. We are invoking the drag queen, but so if we're looking at things like dream states and guided meditations, things like that, of invoking self, what would be some benefits to that? How would that be useful?
Well, in a dream state, it would help pull you out of not understanding you're in a dream. Because a lot of times when you're dreaming, you're not aware. It's just things are happening, and you're just, somebody's playing a movie. You're making a movie in your brain, and you're, acting out the movie. You don't realize that you're in the movie. That would essentially break the fourth wall by being able to do that, and then bring your consciousness forward. So you're like, hey, I don't like this. I want to change this. Because inside the dream state, you're God of that world. Once you have your access to your consciousness, because again, that's happening in the subconscious, but once you bring your consciousness into it, it is your playground.
So there's an interesting thought process here, and it's part of why I've been asking the questions that I've been asking. So you have, in certain religious settings, certain denominations of Christian, it's the easiest thing to talk about,
Mhm.
but you are invoking the Holy Spirit in order to connect to your presence of Jesus or God or an angelic presence, something to that degree.
But
You're
you're
calling
also
upon that.
evoking at the same time. You're trying to form the bond. That's why I said they're tied.
Right. Here's the situation that I find very interesting and is actually a very good representation of that, at least in a religious setting, because I'm trying to bridge that gap for people that are religiously tied. So a lot of people believe that Satanists are worshipers of the devil. That is not actually the case. Luciferians are.
Yeah, Luciferians fall into that moniker, but Satanists, it's my will be done versus thy will be done. That's the biggest distinction between the two. It's self above other.
Exactly. So it is literally the perfect representation, the counterbalance to what it is that we're talking about, proving your point, is that if you have the Christian base that is invoking the presence, and you have the Satanist base that is evoking that presence, they feel God by pulling that presence from themselves as opposed to calling that presence to them.
Yeah, it would be like, so in a case of like prayer, you're asking it to go through you, from you into you, and then out to the external world. When the other one, you're taking you and affecting the outside. So it's a difference of direction is essentially the biggest part of it.
So let's kind of dissect invocation. So it's the fancy word for uh, petition, prayer, offering of self, self-sacrifice. Um, so can you give us some direct examples of how people could use that in not just their practice, but their day to day? Can you give examples like uh, things that people would do on the regular that would be considered invocation?
Asking for peace, to find a calm. I want to call this into myself because it's not there. Um, your aspect of prayer, that's another good example. Trying to think of some more examples on that.
Because I mean, one of the questions that I actually have is, because I know this is probably going to come up, what is a safe way to do these things? Because with certain people,
Knowing what you're letting inside of your boundary. That's part of it. Would be what you would do would be setting your intention of this is what is allowed in and nothing else. So that's where you be really,
boundaries.
really careful on. That's where true name work could come into play, is knowing what something's actual name is, so that way you don't have a visitor you don't want, because you don't want them to throw in squatters' rights there.
Yeah, no.
So
And there are safe
thinking,
ways to do it. It's just when you're dealing with entities, you have to make sure you know what and who you're calling in and sharing your meat soup space with.
so that's one of the biggest reasons why, regardless of what class you take with us or even some of these lives, it we talk about boundaries as heavily as we do. If you're invoking something and you're allowing yourself to take that presence in, or that energy in, or that thought process in, or whatever it is that you're asking for, where are you getting it from?
Know the
And
source. You have to know the
right,
source.
because we've encountered situations where people have invoked and have left it open ended. And there's been a lot of spirit mechanics cases that have uh, revolved around an entity that was allowed into the home because someone said, I'm calling out to anything that will listen, or
Well,
if anything would help me.
To that point, it's very, very important, as a lot of people don't realize that when you're using a spirit board, you are the channel. You are the battery. You are invoking into you and having it move through you to move the planchette. So it is a direct invocation. That's why you have to be very careful and setting boundaries of what is and is not allowed inside the meat suit. And this is one where you could have like a necklace that you have that you focus on. That is like, if I take this necklace off, whatever's there is broken and has to be released. Putting down a yarn around your space that you want to work in, and to do that. So if that spring is broken or you step outside of it, then your connection to whatever that is also separate. That's again setting intention and desire and putting your will behind it.
So, if we're looking at invocation specifically,
Mhm.
how is it? And I'm going to be a little controversial here for some people, but why not? Right? We're swinging wild a little bit. So,
Swing for the fences.
hey, why not? So, if someone were to do pretty much what we're saying not to, and this is anybody worth their salt would give this particular advice. We're not saying that we're the only ones that would ever give it. Any practitioner worth their salt or anybody that's willing to teach metaphysics the way that we are is going to tell you the same thing. But what would happen if someone shook the wrong hand or signed on the dotted line? They invoked a presence. How would that wind up affecting them?
Well, it could go through the steps of attachment. It could go through the steps of full-on possession. But the part that people keep forgetting in all of that, and this is where we kind of have to act as a guide more than anything in that particular regard, is it's your suit. You still have the power to evict it. But you may, whatever in contract you agreed to, you may have to pay and give up whatever that was in that case. But it could very easily go from a simple attachment. It could be something that's symbiotic. That is all. I've seen also symbiosis with invocation. So it's not a negative. It gets a really bad rap because, people go out and they Zeus it. So Zeus, don't put your dick in it. Zeus, don't put, oh my God, Zeus, did you put your dick in it? Yeah. Okay. That's what happens, is that people just don't approach things cautiously. Same as if you drink too much or eat too much, anything in excess can be negative. And same with invocation. There are very safe ways to do it. Again, as long as you take the precautions. It's when you get lackadaisical with it is when you end up getting bit in the butt. Or you think I'm the big bad on the block and something bigger and badder comes in and smacks you right across the face.
So total pivot. Well, not total pivot, but question then. So could you technically do that with different presences that are not, quote, divine?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. You have a space that you can invite or evict things from. But a lot of people, I know I'm coming at it a lot from a negative connotation, but that's where most people associate and understand it from. So that's why I make a lot of reference to that, is that part of that, if you look at how the steps of possession work, it's to wear down your will that you feel like you cannot do it, that you cannot evict it. You were told that lie and you believe it. It's your meat suit. You have the ability to go, you're gone, get out. But you have to have your force of will behind it.
So let's say somebody, and this is, since we're running on hypotheticals, let's say somebody really has their head up their own ass. And they're like, oh my God, you know what I could do? I could totally take on, a Derman in my meat suit. Realistically, would that be possible? Or would they just...
Oh, I've seen people that are symbiotic with demons. That's not an uncommon thing. And again, it's a very common practice in places that are non-Western, because their aspect of what they call a demon is not what gets, the picture of what we see more in Western society. They have a much tighter communion with ancestors, spirits. What they call demons, again, is not necessarily a negative term. I mean, you have good, what they would consider, like in, say, Japan, like with good demons versus bad demons. And you can definitely form a symbiotic relationship with one. You can also get a parasitic one. So it can go both ways. It's like you can get a good partner or a bad partner. A bad partner will drain you and destroy you. A good partner will build you up and make you better. Same difference. It's a relationship.
And what do you mean by take on? Are you talking about taking in, or are you
specifically taking in? Because that's really popular in a lot of different horror movies right now. Oh, well, I can, do this or whatever and, make it go away, blah, 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 blah. Especially with a lot of the stuff that's being, pushed for some of the more popular types of movies.
right?
Well, the
Um,
problem is that you can force evict it, but the biggest part about it is the person doing it. I'll liken it to hypnosis because that's something that's understandable. In hypnosis, the hypnotizer doesn't do shit except get you to the point where you can do the shit yourself. That's all that they are, literally guiding you through how to fix your damn self. They may help you make an association of something like Pavlovian conditioning to take you away from, you want to quit smoking. Okay, well, to you trick yourself into thinking every cigarette tastes like burnt ass. So every time you take a drag, you associate that taste with that cigarette, and that will condition you against it. Pavlovian conditioning works, absolutely works. But all the hypnotist does is guide you to a place where you can do it yourself, because you are the one doing the work. And a lot of time when the exorcisms, you see that too. You are helping them to understand they have the power to kick it out via a second party, deity in most cases, to evict said thing. So you're getting the assistance of its will behind your will to kick it out. Because if the exorcist does their work and it goes right back in, well, I was lonely and I needed a friend, and it happens. It's like people that have been in abusive relationships. That can be to where you feel comfortable in it and then you seek it back out. And if somebody does something to get rid of it and you invite it back in, it's back in.
pretty much. Any questions?
No, I told you I was just lurking in the back.
If you guys in the comments have any questions about what we're talking about, or if you need some explanation into something, feel free. You know, that's why we have these talks.
And something you usually see with both when it comes to invocation and evocation, very often you see ritual associated with it to get yourself into mindset. But that's all ritual is doing a set of steps to get yourself into a mindset to perform a task. That's all it is. People have a ritual where they get up in the morning, they have their coffee, and they have their shower, brush their teeth. That's a ritual too. And if you don't do your ritual, you feel like something's off because that's something that you're comfortable. Same thing with doing invocation or evocation. You're following a set of steps to get yourself into a place where you can do the working and also set up the boundaries. And that's where you're actively thinking, okay, I want to prevent this from happening. I want to talk to this thing. I want to seek advice on this stuff. Like if you're doing tarot, you're calling your connection into other things. You're becoming a medium for that through the cards. Same
Speaking
with
of,
the spirit board, same
oh, go
thing.
ahead.
You're channeling through it and you're becoming the pencil for the thing that wants to write. If you think about it, that's what you're actually doing. You're becoming the pencil for what wants to write. It just doesn't have hands. You're lending it your hands.
A side note, please, for the love of fuck, those of you that want to use a Ouija board or a spirit board, whatever the fuck, please use it correctly.
And make sure you close that motherfucker.
Well, again, if you have a nice house, you have nice shit, and you take the door off the hinges, you can't expect your shit to stay there. Same thing with that. You got to make sure you're like out, lock the door.
it's it's an interesting thing to really think about, because I mean, you learn about this and you teach about this, and then when you're having the discussion on it, you know, you start to understand multiple perspectives. So one thing that I'm going to ask, that way everybody can get it from another party other than the typical Thursday night crew. How does somebody know for a fact that they're safe when they are invoking? And how is it that they know that they're actually talking to who it is they say they want to talk to?
Well, as for perfectly safe, I mean, you can take every precaution in the world on your rocket ship, and the rocket ship blow the fuck up. I mean, you can take every precaution out there, and you can still have something happen. There is no 100% guarantee on any of it. But for knowing what something is you would have to test it with things that would be specific, that would be relevant to it, and possibly stepping through other steps, going, okay, you know something about something, have them reveal that to you. So that way, okay, you know that from you've run your history on what you're wanting to talk to, and knowing this particular thing or this particular person did X, and you know that. and you have them find a way to communicate with you through, say, like EVP or something like that, let me know what this is, because again, you're choosing something and you're doing this research before you go do it. So the presence is not there to be able to pick anything up. You've done your research ahead of time, and question them. If they don't give answers that you like, even through doing a spirit board, kick them out.
When in doubt, get them out.
Yeah, but you have to put it through the paces if you want to know. It's and again, for a safety perspective, you can take every precaution and still have a failure. That there's no 100% ever in that.
Not even
But that's
college.
with anything you do. I mean, you can get in the car and do every precaution right, and a meteor hit your car. Not likely, but it could happen.
So if
And
we're
just remember,
looking,
error in calculation will end up in an error situation.
I mean, there's always human error. There's always just circumstantial kind of things. Chaos is chaos. It is how it is as far as how it works. So
And a lot of people call out in desperation. And that's another thing that usually works negatively for them. And that's why I said if you want to do it right, you do your research on what or who you want to talk to ahead of time, so that you are doing this before the working, so that you have knowledge that you can test against it to go, is this or is it not? And that's where having a second party or a third party with second and third party to verify is not a bad idea. So that way, if you have your information you want written down in an envelope that you left at your house, you know what's in that envelope, no one else does. And they ask the question, you ask the questions, they're using it to medium for you, and you can test whether or not it's actually valid, because does it have knowledge of the unknown?
So in terms of, and all of it, can literally just be exchanged for the other thing, but putting these things in the category. So insert noun here. If you have, we've talked about exorcism. If you have an object, like a cursed object, or even just an anchor object that you're unsure of, if there's a property or an area of land uh, that has a presence, we'll say, how can invocation actually help determine what's there, and how can it help alleviate what's there?
So from an item, that would fall more into, there is again, looking at all the ways invocation can be applied, psychometry would also be a form of invocation, because you're essentially tasting the water, essentially, to see what does it taste like. What is this? And if you've seen it before and can compare it to something. It may, on some parts of that, may come into next week's discussion about putting something around it and calling it out of it. So that way you can, again, interrogate and find out from that.
I've got a question.
Sure.
What's one of your favorite ways to utilize invocation?
Typically, the way that I do it is, vast majority is going to be through tarot. I'm not really fond of sharing my meat suit, so I tend not to want to do that. Nothing against it for people that want to. It's not my cup of tea. I'm aware that I'm going to call it forth.
I mean, channeling is a dangerous thing in and of itself, and being an open channel, so a full conduit, can present with a lot of difficulties. Basically, a channel is someone who willingly allows something to jump them, to be called in, speak through them, even to some degree act through them for a certain period of time. A conduit is one that's usually kind of blindsided. They're not exactly aware that they are being jumped or utilized. until they're aware of it. And about that time, the situation has already happened or is in the process of happening and is almost over with, or
Well, when you think
Um,
about the steps of possession, there's a reason that they come in the steps they do. It's because if you're of sound mind and can be like, nah, get out, that's not good for it. It's got to wear you down to the point you don't believe that you can. And I'm not being specifically about demons, just anything in general that you want to take up chop.
true enough.
That's why it wears you down, so it can be like, no, I'm the one in charge. You have no power here.
So how could invocation in those particular, because I'm pretty sure you see where I'm headed, but how could invocation in those situations actually help with uh, protection or with removal of said negative influence?
Well, an example would be lucid dreaming, is incepting it into it, because again, once you're in the dream world and your consciousness shifts forward, that is your playground. What you decide happens there. That's an excellent way to approach it. Is it the most easy state to get to? No, but you can also get there through guided meditation. So it's not just like you can get there in a sleep state. You can do it through a guided meditation to get there. And then you would be incepting yourself into your subconscious and essentially riding to battle. That's how you could use that to do that. And usually, though, it's going to be an outside party that's assisting with that particular aspect. You can do it on your own, but again, it's more of you just have to
So
find ways to do that.
when people are calling in the white light, I'm trying to figure out the right way to word this question. What are they actually doing with that case?
Depends on what's producing the white light.
It's something that we've taught on before, but we're just taking a different approach. So usually people call the white light and they ask it to do a bunch of things, protect, heal, to guide, all these other things. But it's interesting that no one can ever express where that white light actually comes from. You know,
You gotta see
whether
who's
it
holding the
is
flashlight.
right, right, right. That's literally been one of the majority of the team's biggest arguments with calling in the white light. It's like, well, it's bright as fuck. It's great. It's a pure light. It's awesome. But where'd it come from, and what are you actually doing with it?
Cotton Eye Joe.
Yeah, well, like that, an arc welder is bright white light. You're fine as long as you're not close to it. Same with the sun, real bright light. So you get close to it.
It's an interesting situation. And before anybody who may be watching this on YouTube or watching it later uh, catches this part of the conversation and gets really upset, we're not bagging on light workers. That's not what this is about.
I'd say the same thing, cast a shadow. If you're calling for the shadow, you got to know what's casting it. Same applies in all directions.
Yeah.
Go
Go ahead.
You're fine, go ahead.
It's kind of like if you don't know what you're actually asking for, you open yourself up to the other parts of the conversation that we just had. So if you're asking for something to protect and you're just saying the white light and you're not specifying, it's directly opening yourself up for other shit.
Hey, I got a flashlight in my closet. I got you, man.
Well, everybody wants to throw, good old Lucifer's name around, quote
The
unquote
morning star is
Satan.
the angel of light.
He's literally the morning star. He is the sun at dawn. That motherfucker produces more light than most other angels. But what is it that you're actually asking for?
And that's what a lot of people don't realize either in what they're asking for. If you want strength, how do you become strong? Be put in situations where you don't have a choice but to be strong. If you're asking for patience, the only way to develop patience is being in a situation where you are forced to have patience. So you were literally asking for your life to go to shit. And most
Invoking
people
it.
don't realize that. You
Yeah.
are literally willing your life to go to shit and don't realize it. And you're like, why is this happening? Think
Words
back,
are important.
think back. And another way, like you said, with for something else in there, prayer would be an option in that instance, or to invoke deity to help evict whatever's there. I forgot to mention that one earlier. Not the guided meditation is one way, invoking deity is another way. There are multiple ways to do it.
There's a massive difference in saying, I call on the white light to help protect this individual from fucktitude A, B, C, and D, and going, my God who is always with me, blank. I ask that you help me protect this individual.
Even
There's a
if
massive difference.
right, even if you're approaching it from a space of divine light, if you have a deity of choice, you're still at like you were just saying, Davis. You're still praying, you're calling out, you're invoking that white light through your understanding of God. So you're going to get what it is that you need in that moment because you're asking specifically, you there, I need your specific help to do this thing. You have the technology, I need it rebuilt.
Yeah. And that's be the same if you're calling the Morga or Hecate or any of those. It would be the same. Whether you're doing, and again, it's all the same, it's just different wavelengths. But whatever you're calling in, you got to be very specific with it, because again, if you get what you ask for and you're mad about getting it, then next time they're like, well, I'm not going to help you because you weren't happy when I gave you exactly what you asked for.
That actually kind of brings up another question that I have is, so say you invoke your flavor and on behalf of somebody else, would you technically be taking on the consequences of whatever it is that they did to get to that point?
If you're calling on something else, it'd be up to whatever you call its determination. Because are you acting as intercessor? If you're acting as intercessor, it could be yes or no. It just depends. And also, are you willing to do that? Because it could be, I'll help them, but
It's literally the same thing with like justice spells. Everybody wants to have their flavor come in, or this particular entity come in and smite their enemy.
Michael.
And God, I hate the fact that people use his name for that shit, because that's not what he's about. But you have people that are wanting some kind of divine justice or intervention to literally lay some kind of smack to somebody. What people don't understand is when they're invoking that particular presence, even if it is your particular deity, you're being judged as well. Justice spells and things like that, when you're invoking that presence of your God, or your angel, or your presence, whatever, it is across the fucking board. It doesn't just involve your quote unquote enemy. That presence needs to understand why they're an enemy.
because they have to judge situation, and it becomes he who makes the judgment swings the sword. Because it may determine in an instance of like, you want something for justice, that it comes in and goes, am I the asshole? Yeah, you are.
But I didn't ask if I was the asshole.
Oh, no. You are. That's how it comes down. That's why you have to make sure you are just if you're asking for that. Again, you want to make sure that you have everything calculated before you do something in any working, regardless of what it is.
There is the old and ancient knowledge of fuck around and find out. That is 100% a thing. If you are doing spell work, we'll say, if you're doing some kind of spell work, whether it's for justice, or whether it's for some kind of fast money, or some kind of this or that or the other, even a prosperity spell. If you're doing those kinds of things, you're still being measured. And I think some people forget the fact that it has to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
So
it's
when
the no free lunch.
literally,
Is it? Well, you've heard of the old adage of someone going, I wish for a bunch of money, and then a family member died and they happen to be in the will. So, again, I hate to quote Full Metal Alchemist on equivalent exchange here, but and it doesn't necessarily always apply. There is intervention that can occur from deity that doesn't necessarily follow that, but often, more often than not, it will fall under equivalent exchange. If you want something, you may have to take from someone else. And again, there's nothing necessarily negative about that, but understanding that is the case.
anything that you ask for is going to come from somewhere.
Mhm.
You know, it's, we've used it a lot, but it's same thing as dropping a ton weight and a ton of feathers off of a skyscraper. Yeah, sure, they're both going to hit the ground at the same time because they both weigh a ton, but there's a lot more feathers than there are the single weight.
Mhm.
You're going to wind up having to pay. Nothing is ever free. And I think when it comes to invocation, even when it comes to invoking a presence of God, I think people forget that that's kind of an unconditional bond that you are agreeing to. That's where self sacrifice comes in. I am willing to give these things up in order to get this particular situation or do this particular thing or have this particular effect. So, what do you think about on that particular end?
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at from Judeo-Christianism, it's that, he will help if you're willing to help, and if you're willing to give, he's willing to give. So that goes back to, even though it may be a different measure of what one receives versus the other, it's still the equivalent exchange because something is given on each side. For a person that has no money to give a $20 bill to someone, that is everything they have. For a person that has $1 million to give somebody 20, it's nothing to them. But for the person that gives the 20 that has nothing, that can have a lot more weight because that is literally everything. So equivalency doesn't necessarily mean exactly the same. It just means equivalent in some way.
Right. So, if we're looking at, because spell work's the easiest thing, because everybody knows somebody that has done the fast luck or the quick money spells, or have done, I hate this, but have done love spells, um, different kinds of justice spells. What is it that actually happens when uh, a presence is invoked in the midst of that? What happens? Like, we're just breaking it down so people understand.
Well, an instance where that could happen in that would be you invoke for this, and you just happen to be at the right place at the right time. You happen to have this idea. You happen to remember something that you had long forgotten. Those are all pieces where that could be direct help from an invocation, where you have invoked a deity or an entity, and it's helping you to get that item. But it may later want be that something happens down the road where someone else needs some help and they come to you, and if you deny them, that could be the moment where it was, that's what I expected. I helped you, you helped them.
Turnabout is fair play.
They pay it
Pass it
forward.
forward, pay it forward. Yeah.
At the current moment, we only have comments that are flames and and people saying hi, but we actually don't have any questions currently.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think evocation will bring more, because that's more when you start stepping into high ceremonial magic. You do the same in invocation, but it doesn't get the same flair usually as the other.
It's evocation is the one that everybody thinks of because that is where you're looking at more things like quote unquote summoning.
Yeah,
Thing.
you're into conjuration.
Yep.
That's where you're drawing your circles. You're getting your sigils out, and you're putting the blood of a Wookiee in a tampon and summoning it.
According to Dad, it is a good thing that we don't have any questions currently.
it's really interesting when you start to think about it. Because if you start to look at it in terms of day-to-day processes, if you go to, if you have a 9 to 5, most people have a boss.
Mhm.
So what is that boss actually doing, right?
He said he's invoking the conversation.
Invoking the conversation.
Well, that could be an example of a price paid is that I want this daily thing done. Like you every day go out and feed the birds, or once a week you feed the squirrels. Something like that could be a payment for something that you're asking for. As an example, you invoke and they go, I would like this exchange for it because I would like this done.
Pretty much.
One of the easiest examples, I think, as far as that goes, would arguably be the Fae.
A favor for a favor.
Literally.
Bigger the favor, the bigger the opposite favor.
Know the fucking parameters of your agreement.
And you think that student loan people will come after you? Ooh, comparatively, they may be right on par. If you're on an island and no one knows where you're at because you had a plane crash, that phone's gonna ring. You owe us the favor, and your car's extended warranty is running out.
Fuck.
Jeez. God, that would be my fucking payment. Is that I would have to answer the phone with every spam caller and hear the spiel. Here, fucker, this is what you get.
Fuck. Your car's extended warranty? I don't fucking drive.
But you gotta hear me out. Fuck, I do now.
An interesting thing that they'll find too from when they hear about the evocation side of it is that a lot of the things are done the same. If you're doing it ritualistically similar, you would also be in an invocation, creating a circle, sitting it yourself. Again, this is where we fall into high ceremonial side of it. You would create a circle with sigils that you would sit inside of, and that way it's called inside of that boundary because you are setting that boundary in that creation of that circle. It's what's sitting inside the circle. If you comparative on that, is that from an invocation, you sit in the circle, and an evocation, something else is called into the circle.
Yep.
And the boundaries are still set. That's where a lot of people don't necessarily think of the other parts like tarot or spirit boards. They don't think of that as invocation because in the mind it could be that the circle is when you evoke, not invoke, but they are the same. It's direction. And that's where people, I think, get in more trouble on invocation than evocation because they're not following the requisite steps and being careful. Because they're not thinking of it as being that.
Well, I mean, it's literally, if you want to apply it to protections, and the reason why I keep coming back to that is that that's usually one of the biggest things that we're asked about is how to protect yourself. If you're looking at it in terms of protections, you're looking at seals and wards, right?
Mm-hmm. You're keeping something in or keeping something out. And that's just direction of flow. Same with invocation, evocation. It's controlling flow.
Invocation would be calling something in. Evocation would be calling on the presence of.
Which
Because in an invocation, if you sat in the circle and summoned it, essentially you would both be sitting in the same space. If we want to look at this from a visualization standpoint. If it was evocation, you're sitting inside of one circle, this outside the circle, and something is sitting in it. So you're looking each other eye to eye. When it's the other, you're sitting in the same space.
Yeah. Fun stuff is fun.
So, to button up invocation,
Mhm.
be smart, do your research, set your boundaries, set your intentions, clean your spaces. Which PSA, if you need to clean your fucking space, clean your fucking space.
And remember, error in calculation will end in an error situation.
Very much so. Know where it is that you're headed with it, and be
Before
prepared. for
you
consequences.
start, that's the part. Do it all first. Prep work before doing. Always prep work before doing. That's why I'll take 6 or 7 months before I do something, because I want to plan every avenue of it possibly going sideways. And that's not exaggeration.
No, because I mean, inevitably it will.
Something you don't think of will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're
Always.
very, very careful, you'll find something that you didn't anticipate that will mitigate how bad it goes sideways. But that's what a lot of it is doing, is that is determining how bad it could possibly go sideways if it does.
Makes me so happy. It's the little things.
And conversely, by putting all the work in ahead of time, you're effectively setting up a bunch of dominoes in order, so that all you have to do is just touch the one. You're not having to put more energy into it, more effort into it. You've done all the prep work to put in the minimal amount of effort to get the maximum result, so that you're not overspending energy you don't need to.
It's always good to have a plan.
It's kind of like, baking a cake and going, fuck the directions on the box. I'm going to add in cocoa, but it's actually fucking, arsenic.
Yeah, I'm
Why?
making a lemon cake. Well, you used rubber from a tire. Yeah, I know.
It's to help keep it solidified.
It's a
It
bonding
gives it
nature.
support, man. It's a Vulcan cake. It's a vulcanized rubber cake.
Yeah.
Who needs eggs when we have tire rubber?
Exactly.
Same thing as gelatin. Fuck it.
Jeez. We got any more comments?
Nope.
I think we have successfully either A, scared our audience, or B, hopefully we've actually, explained this well enough for you guys, because, wanted to present this in kind of a podcast format. Mr. Davis is one of our specialists when it comes to invocation, evocation, seals, sigils, and wards.
He teaches a 300 level class on it too, guys. It's pretty dope.
Cough,
I was
cough.
actually getting ready to mention that. I
We
even
may
have
have-
syllabus for it.
We may have him repeat that one next month, actually, in September, when we're doing our 300s.
Oh crap! It is set next month.
Yep.
He's
Fuck,
forgetting
what
it's already
was-
August.
You said either we scared the audience or we made it make sense, and
Yeah.
apparently B is the correct.
Fuck yes.
So
We were successful. But yeah,
Hey, I did something right today.
yay!
Check it off my list.
wanted to kind of present this in more of a podcast format, so that we could ask some of the questions that you guys would, or at least cover some of the topics that you guys would, with one of our mechanics that has the expertise in this particular situation. So if you guys like this, we'll do the same thing next week with evocation. And then we'll be giving you guys direct examples and ways of doing it, step by steps, different
I
things
may
like
bring a
that.
simple one. I may bring a simple process.
Actually, I'm trying to think of an emoji, because we got flames for Tyree. We need something else.
Thumbs up.
Got to be something different than that.
Hold on.
While she's
we
looking-
could do a combination of invocation, evocation, and taking a moment of stillness and calm and placing it in an object, because you would be invoking and evoking both.
That's it.
And all you would do is bring some string and a rock, piece of paper and a pen.
We could do the peace sign. That way it's both. It's kind of dumb though.
Fuck it. Peace signs in the comments if you would like us to continue this kind of format, where we do the kind of podcast questioning bit instead of free for alling. If you like our typical format of free for alling, let us know. But peace signs in the comments if you want different examples, things like that next week. We'll also be going over divination as a whole the week after. So that's going into direct examples of how to do both. So anything else before we let you go, Mr. Davis?
I think we're good. I think we had a good run on that tonight.
Okay.
But if you want to bring string, pen, paper, and a rock next time, we'll show you how to invoke and evoke in a simple process.
And it'll be a nice little teaser for the class.
It will be.
Yeah, because we cover a version of this in the class,
Mhm.
which it shows you how they're all interrelated. Seals, sigils, wards, invocation, evocation, they're all part of the same thing.
It's pretty cool.
I think so. But we're going to end it here. You know, it was a quickie, but a goodie. We're going to do the same thing next week. Mr. Davis will be joining us again next week for Evocation. And always remember that we're going to give you the best information that we can in the best way that we can. And we're going to make sure that you guys are well equipped to be as safe as possible in your practices. But till next time, and as always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember that those that have the power to change themselves have the power to change the world around themselves.